President Donald Trump has been making some pretty bold and contradictory remarks about Canadian oil lately. A while back, he shrugged off the need for Canada's resources, acting like the United States could get by just fine on its own. But now he's going all in on the idea of rebuilding a pipeline that would bring Canadian oil straight to American refineries. This sudden flip-flop highlights a deeper situation. While Trump talks tough and puts Canada down, he also realizes that the U.S. energy sector actually leans heavily on Canadian oil. All these back-and-forth statements have sparked even more debate in recent months. Trump has switched from fiercely criticizing Canada, famously claiming the U.S. has zero need for Canadian oil, to pushing for the resurrection of major energy projects like the Keystone XL pipeline. In one of his latest social media posts, he tore into the Biden administration for scrapping it, then proudly touted how his own administration handled such matters. Trump underlined that he's all about energy independence and lowering America's dependency on foreign sources. He said, "Our country is doing really well, and today, I was just thinking that the company building the Keystone XL pipeline, which was viciously jettisoned by the incompetent Biden administration, should come back to America and get it built. I know they were treated very badly by Biden, but the Trump administration is very different. Easy approvals, almost immediate start. If not them, perhaps another pipeline company. We want the Keystone XL pipeline built." Because of Trump's statements, there's a renewed focus on whether Keystone XL might actually be revived. Advocates say bringing it back could create thousands of new jobs and strengthen energy security across North America. But critics point out the environmental downsides, like potential oil spills and rising carbon emissions, and stress that there are still big regulatory and practical barriers in place. The original company behind the project, TC Energy, has already dismantled parts of the pipeline system and shifted its priorities elsewhere, so simply picking up where things left off isn't as simple as it might sound. There's also a separate development from a February 24, 2025, meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron. President Trump confirmed the U.S. will go ahead with a 25% tariff on goods coming from Canada and Mexico, effective March 3, 2025. He didn't hesitate in saying the tariffs would be on time, emphasizing, "Whatever they charge us, we charge them." In response, the Canadian government plans to launch a detailed counter-tariff strategy to shield its businesses, workers, and economy as a whole. Canada's tariffs will kick in as soon as the American duties are locked in and will stay in place until the U.S. restrictions come off. The goal is to stand firm in defending Canada's economic welfare while hoping to reach a constructive deal to settle the conflict. Under these counter-tariff measures, Canada will slap a 25% tariff on 155 billion Canadian dollars worth of American goods that enter the country, spread out over 2 phases for immediate and strategic impact. In the first phase, which hits about 30 billion Canadian dollars worth of imports, a wide range of sectors will be affected, including farming, everyday consumer items, and industrial materials. For instance, beef, pork, dairy, and a variety of fruits and vegetables from the U.S. will face tariffs. Processed foods like snack items, cereals, and soda will also be affected. On top of that, Canadian shoppers will see prices go up for American-made booze, such as bourbon, Tennessee, whiskey, beer, and wine. As for non-food items, tariffs will apply to household appliances like washing machines, fridges, and dishwashers, as well as personal care products, makeup, and various apparel and footwear. Tariffs will also apply to industrial raw materials like steel, aluminum, plastic, rubber, wood, and paper products. The second phase, planned for March 25, 2025, comes after a public review and will go after another 125 billion Canadian dollars in U.S. imports. Automakers will take a major hit. There will be tariffs on cars, light trucks, and auto parts like batteries, tires, and electrical components. The aerospace and defense sectors also won't be spared, with tariffs on American aircraft parts and maintenance services. Further agricultural goods, including corn, soybeans, wheat, and rice, will be subject to new fees, along with additional processed meat items. On top of that, Canada might put restrictions on sending vital minerals like lithium, nickel, and cobalt to the U.S. Canada isn't just looking at tariffs either. It's considering a variety of ways to protect its economy. One big move might be limiting U.S. companies' ability to compete for Canadian federal and provincial government contracts so that Canadian businesses get priority. Additionally, there could be restrictions on exporting vital resources, possibly cutting back on oil and natural gas supplies to U.S. refineries. Several provincial governments are stepping up too. For example, Ontario's Liquor Board is planning to remove American-made alcoholic drinks from store shelves to show support for Canadian industries. These steps show a bigger strategy to use economic leverage while trying to keep any negative effects on Canadian consumers and companies under control. Meanwhile, Trump's recent comments about Canada have taken an even more startling turn. Not only did he once brush off their imports as unneeded, but he's now repeatedly floated the idea that Canada should simply become the 51st state of the United States. In multiple posts on Truth Social, he stated, "We pay hundreds of billions of dollars to subsidize Canada. There is no reason we don't need anything they have. We have unlimited energy, we make our own cars, and we have more lumber than we can ever use without this massive subsidy. Canada ceases to exist as a viable country. Therefore, Canada should become our cherished 51st state. Much lower taxes and far better military protection for the people of Canada, and no tariffs." These scathing remarks have grabbed worldwide attention and signaled a striking readiness to use tough economic punishments against a longtime ally. The way Trump speaks about Canada swings between an almost dismissive attitude, saying the U.S. doesn't really need them, and a nod to how vital Canada's resources are for American energy. On one hand, he insists the U.S. is completely self-reliant and doesn't need what Canada offers. Yet, on the other, he keeps talking about how if Canada just joined the U.S., there would be zero tariffs, lower taxes, and stronger military backup for Canadians. It's a clear contradiction. Trump calls Canada both a crucial supplier of oil, gas, and other goods, and a country that supposedly shouldn't stand on its own. His comments suggest he sees Canada less as a real partner and more as a region the U.S. can dominate through economic force. Trump has kept up a hard-hitting tariff offensive, making it clear he thinks Canada has been very bad to us on trade. With that in mind, he's decided Canada should start paying its fair share, imposing a 25% tariff on most Canadian goods while keeping energy products at a slightly lower 10% rate. He defends this move as essential for protecting American jobs and national security. By Trump's account, these tariffs serve as a form of economic pressure, pushing Canada to handle issues he blames on its policies, everything from illegal immigration to the influx of dangerous drugs like fentanyl. At a press briefing, he claimed that dropping these tariffs is basically just subsidizing Canada. Though his administration says these measures are all about bolstering national security and cutting more favorable trade deals, the reality is that they highlight a real weak spot. The United States depends on Canada for over 1/4 of its daily oil imports. Trump's talk of making Canada the 51st state isn't just empty grandstanding. It's part of a bigger plan to use broad, expansion-oriented language in negotiations. In a widely shared Truth Social post, he declared that Canada should be our cherished 51st state, promising much lower taxes and stronger security so our great neighbor would finally pay its fair share. Essentially, he's presenting an ultimatum. If Canada won't join the U.S. economic and security framework, it'll be hit with steep tariffs and whatever other countermeasures come along. Canadian leaders are outraged. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has repeatedly mocked Trump's idea, claiming it has a snowball's chance in hell, while Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre insists that Canada will never be the 51st state. We are a strong, independent, sovereign country. Public backlash has been just as fierce, and patriotic groups have sprung up with slogans like, "Canada is not for sale." In an unguarded moment caught on a hot mic, Trudeau told business executives, "I suspect the Trump administration knows exactly how many critical minerals we have, and that might be why they keep hinting we should be the 51st state. They're fully aware of our resources and want to benefit from them." Once dismissed as an offhand remark, That statement now reflects a serious fear over Canada's future and the possibility of lasting damage to U.S.-Canada ties. The energy bond between America and Canada goes way back and holds huge strategic importance. For years, Canada has been the top foreign supplier of crude oil to the United States, thanks partly to how close the two countries are and the network of established pipelines. A lot of U.S. refineries, designed to handle heavier, sourer types of oil, really depend on Canada to keep their operations going. The U.S. Energy Information Administration's data shows that U.S. imports of Canadian crude recently hit new highs at over 4 million barrels a day. That's around 60% of all imported crude, which really underlines how closely the two economies rely on each other. Beyond just oil, the natural gas trade between the countries is equally telling. Massive amounts flow by pipeline across the border, and despite growth in American production, Canadian natural gas remains a key piece of the energy puzzle in certain regions of the United States where infrastructure is set up for those cross-border pipelines. In 2023, the U.S. was taking in about 4.42 million barrels per day of Canadian crude oil, an all-time high that shows just how deep this reliance goes. While Canadian oil is cheaper than lighter types, only certain American refineries can process it well, so it's not just a budget-friendly choice. It's strategically essential. Lately, the U.S. has also been importing close to 8.5 billion cubic feet of natural gas each day from Canada, underlining how huge that part of the trade is. It's vital for heating people's homes, powering factories, and generating electricity, especially when winter hits hard. Because the North American natural gas market is so intertwined, Canadian supplies come with competitive prices and lower transport costs, remaining crucial to U.S. energy security. This cross-border setup underscores just how interlocked both countries' energy markets really are, ensuring that Canadian gas stays a dependable, affordable backup alongside American production. But the U.S.-Canada energy relationship isn't just about fossil fuels. Electricity and other resources are key pieces of the puzzle too. While overall power exports are less than oil or gas, they're still important for keeping the grid stable and secure in various regions. Provinces like Quebec and Ontario ship electricity south, stabilizing grids in places like New England, New York, Ohio, and Michigan, especially helpful when extreme weather or sudden outages test local generation capacity. Beyond electricity, Canada is also a top supplier of critical minerals, uranium, and raw materials needed for America's energy sector and a variety of industrial uses. So, this broader energy partnership goes far beyond just oil and gas, bringing nuclear energy and other emerging technologies into the mix. The Keystone XL pipeline has been a lightning rod for debate, environmentally, politically, and financially, for more than a decade now. Proposed back in 2008 by TC Energy, formerly known as TransCanada, the project was designed to move oil from Alberta's oil sands in Canada down to U.S. refineries. Even though it promised stronger energy infrastructure, the pipeline hit major resistance over environmental issues and shifting political winds. The existing Keystone pipeline system, running since 2010, is already extensive, delivering crude from Alberta to refineries in Illinois and Texas, plus holding tanks in Oklahoma. The planned Keystone XL extension would have stretched about 1,200 miles, or 1,900 kilometers, aiming to pump an extra 830,000 barrels of crude each day from Hardisty, Alberta, to Steel City, Nebraska. This added route was meant to streamline oil flows to refineries along the Gulf Coast. But environmental, political, and social concerns have dogged the project from the start. One big issue is that crude from Alberta's oil sands can generate roughly 81% more greenhouse gases than average crude oil, which is a huge red flag for climate activists. On top of that, the proposed path cut through fragile areas like Nebraska's Sand Hills and the Ogallala Aquifer, a gigantic source of fresh water for drinking and agriculture across the region. A spill there could devastate local ecosystems and water supplies. Indigenous groups also loudly oppose the pipeline, saying construction would disrupt sacred lands and centuries-old cultural traditions. Politically, the Keystone XL pipeline's fate has been all over the map. In 2015, President Barack Obama blocked it, citing climate commitments. Then, President Donald Trump reversed that decision in 2017 with executive orders aimed at spurring job creation and energy independence. But in January 2021, President Joe Biden rescinded the pipeline's permit on his first day in office, reflecting his environmental priorities and push for clean energy. By June 2021, TC Energy pulled the plug on the whole venture, stopping construction and dismantling any parts that had been built. Jump to February 2025, and the Keystone XL pipeline is back on people's minds. President Trump says he wants to revive the project, promising faster approvals. Still, there's no getting around the big roadblocks. TC Energy has since shifted gears, selling off or reallocating materials, and today's energy landscape, along with unrelenting legal and environmental opposition, casts serious doubt on whether Keystone XL can really be reborn.